we love to develop our customers by being able to sit down face to face and explain to them what we are, what we do, what this product is. In an ad, you have a hard time doing that, but in our social media and the way that we're doing things and the way that everybody else is doing things now, it gives you the opportunity to create that message in a palatable amount of time and just say, here you go, here's 30-second snippet, look at this. And I think the whole world is benefiting from that. But if you're not doing that, that's where you're falling behind. And so he's spot on. You need to understand the media and how to get that out going that way. And the better social media companies, the better people that are doing it well, you're seeing that their brands are flourishing.
Welcome to Y'all Street. Today I speak with Dustin Noblitt and Devin Marcum, the CEO and the president of Resistol. Dustin, Devin, you like a cup of coffee?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Hey, coffee cheers, you guys.
Cheers. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Absolutely.
Oh, just what we needed.
I want to get started with the history of Resistol. Let's start there.
Okay. Well, Resistol started in 1927. Two gentlemen, Bayer and Rolnick, came together, started the company, and moved the factory into 1938. Moved it to Garland, Texas, where it resides today. 40-acre property, lots of buildings, lots of old buildings, and it's just a timeline of Americana. You know what the cowboy really is. They in turn sold it to a group from California, and then Levi Strauss bought that company.
When was that?
That was in the 50s.
Oh, in the 50s.
When they
Okay.
bought it. And they had it for quite a long time. And then a gentleman named Irving Joel purchased the company. And his goal was it was all Resistol at the time, and Stetson hats, which they were having some trouble. And Irving Joel was able to work out a deal with the Stetson Group out of Philadelphia, and take on the manufacturing of Stetson. His goal was to actually bury the Stetson name and keep Resistol going. However, we all know Stetson's such an iconic brand worldwide. Started in 1865, so he couldn't bury the brand. And to this day, we're all under one roof, running those two brands along with Charlie One Horse, and so it's a fascinating turn of events to see those brands all work together and throughout the world. So
There's probably just a handful of symbols that you can really point to that identify America, and the cowboy hat has really become one of those symbols. And no matter where you go in the world, if you're wearing a cowboy hat, it stands for something. Mm-hmm. There's an identity that's attached to the cowboy hat. I'd like to talk a little bit about the cowboy hat because just on its face, it's sort of a unique looking adornment. And
Sure.
So what is the history of the look of the cowboy hat? What was it originally intended to do? And there's so many different styles of cowboy hats. Maybe you can talk through some of the history of each of those.
Yeah.
I mean, the cowboy hat, the unique thing about that is there isn't one style that's more correct than the other, right? It gives you the opportunity to be able to style it and wear it however you are. Different areas throughout the United States and throughout the world, and sometimes even through the state itself, you'll see people wearing their hats styled a little bit different. Even here, like in northern Nevada, you have the flat hatter look, right? And then you have the hat look that we wear here. So it does change. But the whole concept of the cowboy hat, when John Stetson created the cowboy hat in Colorado, was they needed a functioning piece of headwear to help keep the warmth inside. So that's why you have, when you put on your cowboy hat in the crown, that's why you have that distance from the top of the hat is to stop and hold hot air to keep you warm. They needed a brim. There was hats out there, but nothing brimmed. And so the brim was created, of course, to ward you away from elements, whether that's the sun, the rain, the wind, however. And then it just started to evolve from then. So as it goes and it's there, it's giving you the protection. The thing that I find fascinating with cowboy hats is it's an iconic symbol. It's a way that you stand out. A gentleman, when I started in the industry, always said, hey, the man in the hat controls the room, right? And so I kind of thought that was a funny thing, maybe just because we're in the hat world. But you started to see people and you go places. Dustin and I travel all over. We'd love when we go to New York, Chicago, because we get people come up and want to engage in conversations with us. It's a conversation starter. It's something that people are fascinated by, right? So people see it, they appreciate it, they want to understand a little bit more, kind of like the question you're asking now. And so we find ourselves, in events like this. People don't talk about cowboy hats much, but as we're traveling all over, it never fails. We'll be sitting having lunch or dinner, and there's groups of people that come over, start to engage. Sometimes simple as love your hat, love the way that it looks, or where are you from? And that's usually where it comes from. It's like people just assume cowboy hat, you got to be from Texas, but Dustin, he's from California. I'm from Colorado. Cowboy hats are worn all over
Montana, Idaho, all over the country.
Yeah. And so I think what's great about the cowboy hat now is it's really trending in a way where we're getting a lot more new hat wearers. And I think people give a lot of credit to Yellowstone, which credit is there. But I think, COVID and other things forced people to get outside, to go seek things. I think what's happening in the country is causing people to seek and go back to generational roots. I think people have had an aspiration of being a cowboy, right? So whether I have the opportunity to own horses or cows or whatnot, I can wear a cowboy hat, right? So that may be my tie-in to being a part of a group or of an industry or something that I've had some sort of an appreciation for.
Community, identity, that sort of thing.
So that cowboy hat gives me that buy-in, right? And what's fun is you'll see it. A new hat wearer comes in, a little intimidating because, like you said, it's a bigger piece of apparel that you're wearing, right? It's bigger brim, bigger crown, and so at first, they kind of look in the mirror and like, I don't know about this.
It's pretty
I don't
bold.
know.
Pretty
but
bold.
As soon as they get comfortable, smile goes across their face. They walk a little bit prouder, chest comes out a little bit more, and so all of a sudden, it gives them a way that they're transporting to this person that you want. So it is cool as, we're sitting here in Las Vegas and our hat booth is right across. You see our repeat customers, or you see the new guy that comes in, putting a brand new person in a cowboy hat and the way that they feel with it is great. It's a sense of confidence that comes from them that you just can't explain anywhere else. And so the cowboy hat gives you an opportunity to customize it to make them feel comfortable. So when they're leaving, it's hard to go anywhere in this building and have something instantly customized, but the cowboy hat gives you that opportunity.
It was a pretty unique experience yesterday, and you guys were generous enough to outfit me in this sweet Resistol. Most people, when they go online and they look at cowboy hats, they're already shaped. They come in all these different, shapes and sizes, or if they go into a store. What's neat about coming here to Cowboy Christmas is you're just essentially given the raw sample. It's literally like a brim and just a gigantic top to it. Sure. And to watch the craftsman go and shape that with some steam into whatever shape or configuration that the individual wants is really, it's really a form of artistry. It's pretty impressive. And I'm interested, I guess, in the manufacturing of the hat. Now, Devin, you started as a tech rep at Resistol, and you've worked your way all the way up to being the president of the company. So I'd love to hear, I guess, just some of the details in terms of how a hat comes together, what the materials are that are used in the construction of the hat, and then hear a little bit more about your personal journey.
Yeah, so creating the cowboy hat is a very unique process, and being the hat manufacturers, there's really no hat manufacturers that own their own body plants, and we own our own body plant. It's, we have closed it down as we're getting ready to relocate it and rebuild it in Garland, Texas. So that factory was in Longview. That process starts by buying raw fur, right? So people look at the cowboy hat, they come in, what is this like glued to? People assume that the fur that's on there is adhered to something else, right? Whether that's plastic or not, but it's fur. And essentially the fur, goes through a process of kerating where it causes it to have a bunch of split ends essentially. And when it's being felted, it's hot water pressure, and those fibers are twisting, interlocking like this. And as it's felting, that body starts to shrink. So your first body is about this tall, this wide. And as it's going through that process, your final cone is about this big, and at that point, it's one of the strongest textiles that you can have. Now you're going back through another process after that where we're stretching out the brim, stretching out the crown. It goes through a pouncing process, and that's where it's going through and being sanded. So the fur itself is a little long, and so has to be sanded to get it into the finish that you're seeing here today. So so you get 3 or 4 different steps on the pouncing side, and then it goes through a press, right? So we can press the open crown, we can press pre-creased hats, which comes out of the box shape, goes through and has special sweatband put in it, special liner cut in it, hat band that goes onto it. It's the thing that we love when people come to Hatco and we get to show it, because people leave truly amazed, like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that all these hands went into it, no idea that it took this amount of time. I think people feel like you press a button and it pops down like a 3D printer, but no, it's all done by hand, and it's done day in and day out. And I mean, we're fortunate we have a lot of 3rd, 4th generational employees that work for us. 10% of our workforce has over 40 years of experience.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. How long does it take for you to learn the skills to be able to put a hat like that together?
You know what? I don't know if you ever stop learning. I think for most people, it's about 6 months to being comfortable, right? I'm not going to say at 6 month time frame you're just accelerating, but you feel comfortable, you know what you're doing. But the people that we have in certain areas have been in those areas for 30, 40 years, and they're the best at it. And we want them there. They don't ever really want to leave that position. We utilize their knowledge for training upcoming people that are coming there, but they possess a lot of different things. Working with cowboy hat, it's a natural material, so they all don't necessarily work exactly the same. So you have to know different iterations of how you can process and get a hat through A to Z, so that way it comes out and looks the exact same. But because of the natural fibers and the way that it's put together, the fur itself reacts differently. And so having the skill set that they have to do it is, instrumental to us being successful. So that's why, I mean, when we say 10% is 40 plus years, I mean, we don't sleep on that at all. I mean, we need these people here and them sharing it. So we're fortunate that we have people that want to stay and continue to do it, because they have the opportunity to be a part of the 2 largest hat companies in the world, right? So they smile from ear to ear when we come out here and people are wearing the cowboy hats. They're very, very proud in what they do.
So that transition for you, were you actually making any of the hats, or were you just supporting?
Yeah, so I started, I've been through the process, hundreds, thousands of times, but how I got to where I was today started being a tech rep. So I would go into all the boot barn stores and I'd teach them how to merchandise hats. I'd teach them how to sell hats, and ultimately how to shape hats, right? So as you go into a Western store, the easiest way to sell a hat is making sure somebody is there to be able to finish it, and by that, shaping it to be customized. So for us, having to take what's a priority to us, making sure that our product people can service and get out the door, of course, helps us sell more hats. That's how I started. I would just go into all the boot barn locations. At the time, there was 38. I think today they're close to 500. I was in that position for 2 years. Then an opportunity was presented to me to take over a sales territory. So I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I took care of Arizona, New Mexico, West Texas. I was in that for 10 to 11 months. And then again, fortunate that an opportunity was presented to me to move to Dallas, work out of the office as the national sales manager, where I oversaw all of our sales reps, key accounts. I was in that position for 10 years. And then 2 years ago, our GM, Ricky Bolin, retired. And I was, like I said, I was there, and I was, again, fortunate that I was offered the chance to be the president and steward this company, which is a huge blessing to me. I remember the first day I sat down to interview, I said, ultimately, my goal is to be the president of this company. I think a lot of people go in with that mentality, but I was trying to do everything I could to be there. Being able to work for Dustin is one of the greatest things. He's kind of the guy that goes behind, people don't see everything that he does, but he's probably the best steward of this whole company for us. He's willing to invest in people that are coming up through the company. He gives support that you can't imagine. He allows us to do what we want to do, and he believes in, so we sit down at a table, we bring these ideas, and it's not like, hey, nope, that's not what we're doing. He's like, okay, let's try it. Let's see what we can do. So being a guy that's, been with the company now going on 16 years in the position that I'm at, it is awesome being able to have a gentleman like him in your corner that you can bounce numerous of ideas, and knowing that, yeah, a lot of the hat making stuff stays the same, but we need to be innovative. We need to change. We need to try different things. We can't be stagnant in what we've always done. Can't just say, hey, we got the 2 biggest brand names. Let's just rest on our laurels and hope that they carry us. So in the last 2 years, Dustin, myself, Sean O'Toole, our EVP, and Tony Farrow, CFO, we've had a very aggressive game plan of how do we eliminate this backlog that we had, because we had a tremendous backlog of trying to get, how do we get that? How do we ensure not only we're getting the products.
Was that backlog the result of what you use the expression the Yellowstone effect? Were you seeing this huge groundswell of interest in purchasing hats because of Yellowstone, and I guess which coincided with COVID as well?
Yeah, I think that was a huge part of it, and then the demographic of having lady head wearers come in, and that group itself has went bananas, right? So they went from fashion hats, now they're coming and wearing more of a traditional hat of what we're wearing now. And that lady consumer, instead of it just being a fashion piece that's here and gone, she's really bought in. And now she's a genuine hat wearer each and every day like us. So that our capacity, I mean, we were building 250 dozen hats a day out of our felt plant. We're building another 150 dozen hats out of our straw plant. And we still had a backlog. I mean, we sat and we're like, hey guys, how are we gonna do this? Well, we put a super aggressive game plan together. We said, hey, we're going to do what we got to do to ensure that our end consumers can have our product, and it's paid off dividends. But we had to think differently than we've had in the past and do things that we probably never would have, but thank goodness we did.
Dustin, let's talk a little bit about the relationship between Resistol and Stetson. You have the 2 biggest hat companies in the world. It's like owning both Coke and Pepsi.
Yeah.
So how do you think about the 2 different brands? How do you manage the 2 different brands? How do you allocate resources?
Yeah.
Is Stetson's goal to be number 1?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so is Resistol and even Charlie One Horse. So yeah, it's no, we treat them separately. I mean, of course the manufacturing is pretty much the same process. But we treat them separately.
What's the difference between the 2 brands?
I mean, it's just market share, really. I mean, it's just we've always treated Resistol as core cowboy. That's what it was known more, real core cowboy, and Stetson was so worldly known. You have the fedoras and all those, LA influence, New York influence, European influence, that, very diverse. So, but we've seen more, even Stetson brand and Resistol, that core value and core authenticity. Everybody's drawn to that, and so it's fun to watch both those brands just compete back and forth, and you see in certain parts of the area, the United States even. Certain parts more Resistol sells, other areas more Stetson sells. So it's just fun to actually, from my perspective, just to see how they bounce back and forth.
So really, it's just a brand preference for
the
consumer.
That's what I would say. It's a brand preference, and even though we spend a lot on marketing, they both seem to do well in certain demographics. So yeah, it's just preference.
Now you're a California cowboy.
Yeah.
You're a rancher, roper, but you got your start in the wine business. Is that right?
That's correct. So I maybe even tear back a little farther. Grew up farming and ranching family. Dad and grandpa always working for somebody else, managing their properties, ranches, and so I was fortunate to get into college through a family friend's mother. I was just cowboying for a couple years on a ranch in Santa Maria, and her son, she was worried about him going to college, so she's like, I've got a opportunity for you. And I was like, okay. She said, you go take care of my son because he's going to need help, and you can live for free. I'll pay for you to live here if you'll go back to school. And huge turning point in my life to be able to go do that. So I went back, looked at my checkbook, and I had $800 in it. So I was like, I probably should go back to college. And from there, I went to it was a junior college. Was there only a year. Got a scholarship, rodeo scholarship, to Cal Poly out in San Luis Obispo, and that was another game changer. Animal science degree. I looked at that. That was my wheelhouse, but crop science is what I needed to get into because the wine business was just booming out there.
And what year was this around?
This was in the 90s, so 95 to 98. I was at Cal Poly. And so I studied crop science and got a pest control advisor's license through the state to walk fields. And so as soon as I graduated, got a job with a chemical company. It was called Western Farm Service at the time. Just so happens, Camus was leasing a ranch in Santa Maria area, and they were starting Conundrum and Belle Glace Pinot. And so
Pretty high-end wine.
yes. And I was not a wine drinker, didn't even really understand it, didn't even like the
I don't
taste
know a
of
lot
it.
of cowboys who are wine
Yeah.
drinkers.
But I understood farming, and so I was walking their fields, taking care of them, made a lot of recommendations. So 2 years into it, all of a sudden, I get a call from the office, and they said, the owner of Camus is flying in. He would like to meet you at the ranch. So I said, okay, head out there. And sure enough, Chuck Wagner steps out of the car, and he looks at me, and he's like, well, you're young. And I said, yes, sir. I said, I've been farming my whole life, but he's like, well, I like what you've done with the grapes here. You ever want to work internally, for a company? And I was like, well, I've got a small family. I just got married, and I had my first child. And he's like, well, I think it'll be worth your while if and no money like that was ever, Napa money was just so much more than where we were from. So I took the job, and it was a great experience.
And what did you do there?
So I was their viticulturalist, and then became the director of farming for them. So everything from Napa, Sonoma, Monterey County, and then Santa Maria, Santa Barbara County. They also had table grapes in Sonora, Mexico, down in Hermosillo. So I would go down there a week a month for 6 months and walk those fields and give them recommendations on what to do. And they'd have 400 people out there picking the grapes and sending them up to the States.
What were your biggest learnings from that experience?
I think just people skills, learning how to manage people at a young age. You've got all those laborers, in ag, and different little managers at each ranch. So developing relationships with them. And
Are you bilingual?
Yeah, I studied 4 years in high school, a couple years in college, but I learned more out in the field than anything.
Sure.
I've lost my touch there just because if you don't practice it, but I can get by. If I go to Cabo now, I can. By the second day, I can talk to them pretty well. So
Very cool. And then what prompted you to leave?
Really, it was my ex-wife.
Okay.
No, she. We were trying to keep a marriage together, and she blamed it on my travel, and which it really turned out it wasn't the travel. So I left Camus to take a seed company job, which was local, and Gowan Seed, and sell vegetable seed to farmers there, and so that ended, and at age 30, I got on the Ranchero ride, Rancheros Visitadores, and it's out in California. Guys from all over the world really come there, and it started in 1930. And I'd always heard about it growing up out there, and had some of my dad's friends were involved, and it was something I was always aspired to be on. People like Walt Disney, Ronald Reagan, and you have all facets of doctors, lawyers, construction, cowboys, all facets of life come for this 1 week, and it's like a cowboy fraternity.
Yeah.
So getting on that ride, you have to be a minimum of 30. I was fortunate to get on. And was introduced to Dennis Carroll. Dennis Carroll was from Chicago and owned Hatco, Resistol, owned Cactus Brands, Fastback as well. Helimatic, and he was enamored, just going back to the cowboy lifestyle and Western lifestyle. Chicago businessman who came out to that California ride, and it changed his life. He just wanted to be a part of it so much that he sold his tech companies and everything and bought Western companies. Just wanted to be a part of it. So some reason we hit it off. I mean, he's much old. He's 87 this year. And so I was fortunate to go to work for him in 2011 and work hand in hand with him, overseeing all the businesses and slowly just taking over. And came a point he didn't really have a succession plan. And so I talked to him about, opportunity to buy him out. And I was fortunate that he allowed me to do that. So here we are.
So here we are. What does the next 5 years look like for the hat business?
I see we're being aggressive. I just want to see our brands continue to be successful. Love the Western culture, and I think if we can introduce that to more and more people, I think as a whole, even the United States and all that, this younger generation, getting them involved and used to what this culture is about and this lifestyle. Our slogan, "We live it every day." Some competitors have used that against us. That you don't have to wear our hat, you don't have to live it every day to wear our hat. But that's not what that's about. It's about just identity,
authenticity.
And living it in your heart.
Yeah.
Whether it's construction worker or it doesn't matter. Restaurant person, doctor, lawyer. They live their job every day. But when they come home, they have passion for our Western heritage, and it's about a handshake, about looking somebody in the eye and being honest and taking care of one another.
Do you have an international footprint?
We do, and it's growing. Yeah, Stetson's always had a large footprint, but Resistol has really gained a lot of ground. So we stay pretty aggressive with that, and we see a lot more Europeans wanting to wear American cowboy hats. It's pretty cool.
That's right. Devin, I want to go back to the manufacturing again for a moment, if I could, because I'm thinking about these beaver pelts, and I'm just wondering, like, where would you get beaver pelts?
So that's a great question, right? So we buy all of our fur from all over the world. Beaver fur is predominantly bought out of Canada. And they buy it in a market, right? So they go, there's pelts that are laying there. There's different grades. It's a commodity essentially. And so they'll go and buy the pelts that are needed for the year, and then they come back and it goes through that process where all the fur comes off. In cowboy hats, besides just beaver fur, you have rabbit fur and everything. The Europeans, that's where we get most of the rabbit fur. Rabbit fur in the European market is consumed like we eat chicken, right? So it's a byproduct. Or you have Argentinian hare, which is a wild trap rabbit from Argentina, but that meat is also, that fur is being shipped to Europe. Europeans are buying it. So that's mostly where your fur is coming from. So you have your beaver that's coming from Canada. You have your rabbit fur coming from the Europeans. And then, of course, when you're going to make your hat, you throw in your little special recipe determining on how much beaver fur you're going to put in there versus rabbit fur. Are you putting back fur of the beaver in there? Are you putting belly fur of the beaver in there? What does that mix look like? And that leads you to, the whole X game that's out there in cowboy hats. There is no standard. People always ask, like, hey, if I have a 50X, is it a 50% of that hat being beaver or not? Some manufacturers, they do it that way. Some other manufacturers don't. But there isn't anything out there that says, hey, if you're going to make a 6X hat, it must consist of X, Y, and Z. That's everybody's special proprietary blend. And, of course, we have ours.
So for those listening who don't know what you're talking about as far as 6X, 50X, 3X, walk through the sort of the classifications of hats.
Yeah, so for our brands, right, I can speak to our brands. For us, when you hit into a 6X, for us, that is a 100% fur felt hat, right? So there's no wool component to it. And then you're going to start there with all rabbit fur. And as you start to increase the X number, your fur quality is going to increase, right? So it could be a 6 to a 7, something small like that, but you're going to now start adding better quality rabbit fur, different types of rabbits that are there. And as for us, when you start to get into your 10X and above, now we're going to start to blend in beaver fur, right? So beaver fur is the hatter's choice of fur to add into it. Of course, beaver fur is pricey. So as you start to add more and more beaver fur, the price of your hat goes up. But as we start to elevate and go into our X's, our rabbit fur component starts to increase. And then our our beaver fur component starts to increase. And then it starts to change on where we're actually getting the beaver fur from. Is it coming from the back? Is it coming from the belly? The belly fur from the beaver is the most ideal, has the best, most luxurious feel. There's other components that you can add into it. On our Diamante, we add a mixture of some chinchilla that goes in there. And there's not adding any structure value to it. It's giving it a better hand or a better feel. It just makes it feel soft when you're putting it on. But the integrity and the strength of the hat is going to be coming from your beaver fur aspect. And then as you start to throw in some of the Argentine hare's fur, that really gives a hat a lot of strength and durability. It felt really, really tight. So in some of your inferior fur that you're using, sometimes you'll add a little bit more Argentine hare's fur to give you a little bit more structure. Everything for us leading up to a 6X is going to be a wool. So wool it goes through a felting process, but instead of it being felted like this, it's pressed, right? And so as we're pressing it down, getting it, and it goes through a little bit more of a stiffening process. A wool hat is a great hat. It just isn't going to have the longevity that a fur felt hat is. The felting actual process of it gives that hat a lot more longevity. And as you start to use better quality furs, the felting process itself becomes tighter and tighter, leading us into a better cowboy hat.
Now, what about the summer hats? So straw, palm leaf. Can you talk a little bit about, again, thinking about our audience not maybe being familiar with cowboy hats, what are the seasons and how do the hats change during those seasons for those wearing cowboy hats?
Yeah, so, there is seasonality, right? We sell hats for every season. But there are a lot of guys, just so everybody knows, there's a lot of people out there wearing a fur felt hat all year round is okay. Wearing a straw hat is okay, but people in the wintertime, I'm like, why are you wearing a straw hat? It's not as warm, right? And so the whole concept is I'm going to wear a felted hat, whether that be wool or fur in the wintertime, to give me great heat, right? And help me stay warm. And a straw hat isn't going to allow that. It's going to do the opposite, allows you to be protected. That's why you wear it in the summertime, is to give us, a little bit more ventilation, a little lighter, a little bit cooler. But on the straw side of things, like you were alluding to, we have a palm leaf hat, which it's a heavier hat. It's durable, but it's heavy. It's a little bit hotter. Price pointed, pretty entry level price. Not going to be spending a tremendous amount of money. And then you go into a Bangora, which is a machine woven straw hat. Great looks, but not nearly as aesthetically pleasing as a shantung hat is going to be. And with the shantung, that is a hat that is hand woven. So a lot of your better straw hats that you'll see, the straw hat bodies, there's not anywhere else in the world you can buy a shantung body besides China. And they do weave them by hand there. They sit in little rural villages at a table kind of like we're sitting at today, and they sit and they weave these bodies. They're so talented at it. When you see the bodies and what goes into it, you're blown away that these little ladies will sit here and look at each other, be doing this, the pattern that they can weave into it, how tight they can do it. But as they start to change the straw width, which is the boo of the straw, so a much smaller boo hat is going to be a tighter weave, more challenging, more room for air because it does show more blemishes if they're there, is going to cost you a whole lot more. So in the straw world, when I started in the hat industry 16 years ago, a straw hat would retail for $50, $60. Now we're at a point where that straw hat today is $200+, right? So it has changed. And a lot of people would use straws, go through 2 a year, throw them away, a little bit more disposable as far as cost goes. But now that they've increased, and we've tried to do our part of educating people on what goes into it. I would say even people in our company, myself, as one at first, until you really see what goes into it, the appreciation for it, probably wasn't there. Now that you see it, you wear that straw hat a little bit longer.
Yeah.
You take care of it a little bit more. Just because from what we hear is that is something that isn't being passed down generation to generation. The lady that is building those hats, they're aging out. They're becoming elderly. They're really not wanting to do it, and their daughters aren't really necessarily wanting to take that on. Now, I don't think we're going to run into an instance where we're not able to get straw hats anytime soon, but I think it's on the horizon. It could happen. So we're trying to figure out how we can navigate around that obstacle, trying to be ahead of that game. We don't want to be at that point and be like, okay, now that we can't get it, what are we going to do? So as we sit around, we're having conversations on how we can be creative and address that issue far before it becomes an issue.
How many employees do you have in Garland?
We have 400.
400. Wow. Pretty sizable operation. I guess, like you were saying, that so much of this is done by hand, and done with craftsmen. And as you talk about this idea of aging out and thinking about where the next generation of craftsmen is going to come from, it's got to be a challenge. I know we face it at Casper Companies, our parent company as well, and on the manufacturing side, it is we're losing a lot of that apprenticeship type transition that you see from one generation to the next. I want to transition to pop culture. We come here and Resistol's everywhere, and famous country music singers, some of the best athletes, Cody Webster, who we both sponsor. I just recently saw a music video with Cody Johnson called "The Fall," which is a great song. And you see the opening shot. Actually, let's show this on the pod. So you see in that opening shot, Resistol front and center. I'd like you to talk about that, what your strategy is, your relationship with these influencers, how important that is for the brand identity, and just what your plans are there.
Sure. We've been very fortunate that we've been at the right place at the right time. Introduced Cody and I became good friends several years ago. He came out to that Ranchero ride that I was talking about, and he was just before he was the Cody Johnson, he was just a young man up there taking his turn playing some songs, and it was like, but his voice just stood out. And we had a great conversation, shook hands, told him I'd take care, send him a hat, and the rest is history. We exchanged numbers, and we've been talking weekly ever since. So things like that. We've got Riley Green, and just been fortunate to know the right players in certain industries get introduced, and I think we're fortunate with our brands that they want to wear them. Because it makes them feel authentic, being with an authentic company, an iconic brand. So it's nice to know that they want to be a part and be with us.
Yeah, I think that everybody that we have understands our business, understands that we are a large hat manufacturer, but we're a really small family feel company. And in the Western way of things, I think people appreciate how our business is. I think it's able to relate. And so, Dustin was saying, we always say we live it every day. These are guys that also want to live it every day. And so, we have been fortunate to have a guy like Cody Johnson, and he's getting up on stage talking about the brand. We're not paying Cody Johnson to talk about the brand. Cody Johnson's up there talking about the brand because he loves the brand and what it stands for. Lainey Wilson, she's another one for us. George Strait, and these are people like with George Strait himself. Our deal with him to this day is a handshake agreement. And so
Texas handshake.
Yeah. And so it's something, and we hold that near and dear, and we would never jeopardize that because it means the world to us. That's how I was brought up. That's how Dustin was brought up. You shake somebody's hand and a deal is a deal. And they've all, they're passionate about the brand just like we are. So it makes it easy having individuals like that. And I know you're going to have Cody Webster on a podcast. And he's a guy, he loves the brand. And every time we go out and we can have conversations about anything, but they would do anything for us in our brand because they love it. But they know on the flip side, we would do anything and everything for them. And so we don't ever look at it as like sponsorships. We always look at it as partnerships and how we can really benefit using this together. And I think being in this world, the music world, the rodeo world, everything else, and having solid partners there with you makes it a whole lot easier, especially when things become challenging.
I was talking yesterday with Dale Brisby, and he was saying that every company really needs to start as a media company. And I think what he meant by that is essentially the importance today of being able to get your message out to the public and tell your story out to the public. Mm-hmm. You've been around the company a long time. You have seen this huge transition in terms of both online social media and influencers and so forth. Has that affected your strategy at all?
Yes. I mean, it was funny when I first went to work for Dennis. He was very old school way of doing business. It always worked for him, very successful at it, but he didn't understand the online and where it was heading. And it's hard to educate. That was a generational gap, and most of the managers at that time too, had their retail stores, and this is how we operate, and this is what we're supposed to do. And we talk about social media, and they're like, "Excuse me, what?" And so it was a process, and I think we were actually somewhat late to the game because I couldn't get them to bite off on it fast enough. Once we did, it's amazing, what getting your message out there and what you've seen just in the last 2 years on social media and how you have to change how you're getting your message across and people's attention span, which is maybe not be a good thing, but their attention span is it's not there anymore. So you have to give them blast to draw their attention, and then you can engage once you have their attention. But it's an amazing transformation that's happened in this digital world, and that's why we've got a young team in there now that understand it. And they're I remember my daughter was in high school and sitting at a table, and I was getting ready to head to the hat company, and we're having dinner. She's like, "Dad, by the way, you guys are posting at the wrong time." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Well, no, you need to be posting at this time. This is what you need to be doing. This is why. So these people will, you catch their attention at this time, and then also this time at breakfast, and this time, I'm like, really? So
that's why I'm thankful we have Gabby over here. She handles all of that for us.
So I go to the meeting, a few days later, and I go, "Hey, by the way, you guys are posting at the wrong time, and they're like, "Where did this come from?" Like, how do you know about that? So you've got to have the young generation in there that understand it, because that's where it's all been, and it's all heading that way for sure.
Yeah, I think Dale's statement of having a media presence is nobody's looking at magazines anymore. And you can have the most beautiful ad, and I'm not saying that they don't work, but being able to have your own social media or being able to be on a podcast like this, where we're able to reach out and talk about our brand to people that are curious about it, and not having them have to develop their own idea of what your brand is by looking at a beautiful ad. We have the opportunity, because we love to develop our customers by being able to sit down face to face and explain to them what we are, what we do, what this product is. In an ad, you have a hard time doing that, but in our social media and the way that we're doing things and the way that everybody else is doing things now, it gives you the opportunity to create that message in a palatable amount of time and just say, here you go, here's 30-second snippet, look at this. And I think the whole world is benefiting from that. But if you're not doing that, that's where you're falling behind. And so he's spot on. You need to understand the media and how to get that out going that way. And the better social media companies, the better people that are doing it well, you're seeing that their brands are flourishing. You have opportunity to just really hone in on your customers and let them understand what you're trying to do. So I think that's probably one of the best things I've heard him say.
Well, I'm proud to be a customer, and I know a lot of our employees are customers of yours and love your products, love that you're in Texas. And in closing, I got each of you a Y'all Street coin and a Texas coin.
Oh, wow.
Being a Texas company, you got to have one of these. And I
Man,
also,
that is beautiful.
Yeah.
being in Garland, I got you this Dallas-Fort Worth gold back for each
Oh,
of you.
wow.
1/1000th of an ounce of gold. So you
Look
can
at that thing.
roll on out of here with some gold and silver.
Very
Well,
cool.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Dustin, Devin, thank you.
Thank you for having us on, allowing us to tell you a little bit more about what we do. We greatly appreciate it.